What's good, guys? So in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to use an exploratory data analysis on the Titanic dataset. The RMS Titanic was a British passenger liner that sank in the North Atlantic Ocean in the early morning hours of 15th April 1912 after it collided with an iceberg during its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City. So the problem that we are trying to identify here is to understand the connections between the many passenger attributes or features in the dataset, such as age, gender, class, and their likelihood of surviving the incident. So we are going to start by importing our libraries. So we will import pandas. We import pandas as PD to read our data. Then we import NumPy as NP for numerical computations. We import matplotlib .pyplot as PLT. Then we also import Seaborn, which is also used for data visualization, as SNS. So after importing everything, then we will run our cell. So once we are done with that, we are going to load the data set to have a brief overview of the data set. So we are going to define a variable. So I'm going to name my variable df equal to pd.read_csv. And I'm going to bring the name of the data set, which is Titanic.csv. Then I close my bracket. So I'll press shift and enter to run the cell. After that, I'm going to print the data frame to the console. So I'll type df and press shift and enter in a new cell to print the data frame. So over here, the data set has 1309 entries with 5 columns, and these are specifically the columns. We have unnamed 0, which contains the names of the passengers. We have the survived column, which indicates whether a passenger survived or a passenger did not survive. And we have the gender of the passengers. We have the age as well, and we have the passenger class. So in the data cleaning, we are going to start by renaming our columns for better understanding. So I'm going to rename the columns. So df.columns equal to. So I want the first column to be name, and I want the second column to be survived with capital S. So the sex will be gender, and the passenger class will be renamed as class. Okay, this is where the mistake is coming from. we actually have 5 columns, but I omitted the age. That's why the cell isn't running. So I'm going to include the age. Now press Shift and Enter. So once I'm done, I'm going to view the data frame to see if the columns have been renamed appropriately. So df.head to view the first 5 rows. Okay, so the columns have been renamed appropriately. So what we are going to do next is to check for missing values. So to check for missing values, you bring the name of the data frame dot is null dot sum. This checks for the total number of missing values in the data frame. So we have 263 values which are missing in the age column. So what we will do in fixing the missing values is to drop all of them. So we are going to use the drop now method to drop all the null values. So df dot drop null, and we press Shift and Enter to drop them. I think I have to equate it to the data frame so that they will be dropped permanently. So let's check to see if the missing values have been dropped permanently. So we are going to copy this code again over here, Shift Enter. So now there are no missing values in the data frame. So the next thing is to check for duplicated values. So in order to check for duplicated values, we are going to use the duplicated method. So df dot duplicated dot sum. So there are no duplicated values in the data frame. When we talk about duplicated values, we are actually talking about values that repeated itself, and there are actually no values that repeated itself. So we are now going to do the exploratory data analysis. So with the exploratory data analysis, we are going to check for the length of our data. So there are actually 1046. Okay guys, so after getting to this point, I realized my audio was muted for the rest of the recording. So I'm going to explain the codes to you without running the codes. So after checking for the length of the data set, I found the average age of the passengers, which was 29 years, and I also found the maximum age, which was 80 years, and the minimum age, which was 0.16. So you can convert it to actual age by multiplying 0.16 by 12 months. And also I decided to get some information about the passenger with the maximum age, as in the name of the passenger, whether he survived or not, his gender, and the class that he was in, whether first class passenger or second class passenger or third class. I also went ahead to investigate the survived column. So I checked for the number of individuals who didn't survive, which was 809, and I was able to assess this by selecting the survived column and using the value counts to distinguish and produce the number of passengers that survived and those that did not survive. Afterwards, I went ahead to generate a count plot. So I gave the count plot a title, which is Titanic Survivor Plot, and I displayed the count plot to the console using the matplotlib plt.show. So it can be seen that the number of individuals who survived is around 500, and the number of individuals who couldn't survive is around 800. And also, I also went ahead to check for the number of passengers in the first class, second class, and the third class, and also generated a count plot for the passenger class. So in a real world scenario, if we use the flight as an example, we have the business class and the economy class. So usually most people purchase the economy class, and the business class is usually reserved for the most privileged, talking about the rich in that sense. I also went ahead and grouped the class of passengers by the survived column to see the number of passengers that survived in first class and the number of passengers that didn't survive in the first class. I also did same for the second and the third class. I brought my data frame, then I brought the group by. So I grouped the class and the survived column, and I counted the number of individuals or passengers that survived in the first class, the second class, and the third class, and those who couldn't survive. Afterwards, I generated a count plot of it. So looking at the count plot, you can see that the number of passengers who didn't survive was very high in the third class, and the number of passengers that survived was very high in the first class. I also investigated the gender column to find the number of males and the number of females. I also checked for the number of males and females that survived and those that didn't survive, and I generated a count plot for it. So this makes sense in real world life because females will be given much advantage compared to males when it comes to survival rate. I also found out about the class count by gender. So over here, the first class represents the blue, the second class represents brown, and the third class represents the green. So over here we can see that the number of females in the first class is low compared to the number of males in the first class, and also the number of males in the third class is very high compared to the number of females in the third class. So overall, the EDA suggests that gender and passenger class were the most significant factors determining survival rate. Female first class passengers would likely have the highest survival probability, while male third class passengers would likely have the lowest. The overall fatality count was high, particularly among the largest passenger group, third class, and among males. Okay guys, thank you for watching this video, and kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll make sure to leave the dataset in the description along with the Jupyter Notebook so that you can download and follow along with the tutorial. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.